What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Roo.
Welcome to Couch in the Roo, presented as always by Pure Options Craft Cannabis. Pure Options has some great new deals out for March and some bigger deals coming even with St. Patrick's Day and March Madness coming up. We'll get into those in a little bit. Some really cool stuff going on at Pure Options. Download the app today. Visit the website, pureoptions.com. Join the Pure Perks loyalty program. Let your Pure Options experience be tailored just for you in your email box like it is for me. Again, pureoptions.com. And our Monday afternoon show presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. Jeff Kohler is the newest Muskox man, and he ordered his last night. You too can be a Muskox man, even if your child doesn't grab 16 rebounds, personifying a Muskox. Visit gomuskox.com. Check out their latest offerings. Muskox is a NIL supporter of the Big Ten champion MSU hockey program, and you look your best, you feel your best. Look, if you've seen Jason and me without a Muskox, then you've seen us in a Muskox. It's like an ugly Clark Kent to Superman, right? It's you can be that too. Go to gomuskox.com and get your Muskox today. And Couch in the Rube listeners get $15 off their Muskox purchase with the code FIXITINPOST. FIXITINPOST, all one word, at gomuskox.com. Jason, how you doing, brother?
It's the American way, except America has gotten soft.
I mean, I felt all of Fred Human.
What's up, buddy? We just need Fred Human to get some Muskox flannels, right?
Yep.
I saw Jeff Kohler dropping some money last night. It was awesome. It's unbelievable. I'm like, oh, man, Kohler's going to be the first take. Jaxon Kohler, take number one. Because I saw him post that. I saw him post a picture with you, too.
It was good to chat with him. Yeah, it was good to run into him. You know, we've chatted back and forth, but to run into him down by the locker room and chat for a little bit.
16 boards. I think he should order a couple flannels every time his son gets 16 boards, right?
I like it. Maybe everybody. No. Every time Jaxon Kohler gets 16 boards, all MSU fans order a Muskox flannel. I think that's
fair.
I do too. No, he was younger than I thought. I was much younger. That's the depressing thing about getting older is when I start running into players' parents, and I'm like,
how old did you think he was?
This guy might be younger than me.
Well, he has to be, right?
Why would he have to be younger than me?
Well, because his son's, 21? 21, yeah.
Why would he have to be younger than me if his son is 21? How old do you think I am?
Well, you're my age, right?
Right, but it didn't mean he doesn't have to have Jaxon when he's 24.
Right, but how old did you think he was, though? Did you think he was 60?
I pictured 50. Yeah.
Okay.
That was in my head. Yeah. I pictured
Nobody
50.
has kids at 19 or 20.
Well, and part of it is
it is weird, though. It is wild seeing younger people in the stands with the athletes, though, now. It's like, oh, man.
And Jaden Akins' dad, who I've gotten to know, Jerome, quite a bit over the last few years, we wind up.
Hell yeah, Jerome, get some flannels. Your son had a great game too.
Wind up in airports together or whatever reason for a lot. Anyway, he actually is an older dad. You know, like he's actually what I picture like he's older than me. And I often
didn't you have like when you were in elementary school, right? There was a couple kids that had parents that were like way old. We thought they were like their grandparents, but it was actually their parents. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, no.
So it's all,
Like
all
if Elizabeth and I have children, I will be the old dad. That will be my thing.
Clock is ticking for you.
Luckily, I look young, and with a Muskox flannel, I can continue to look like I'm in my 40s long after I'm in my
clock is 50s. Ticking, man.
So, yeah, what are we going to talk about today?
I don't know.
Could be anything.
Yeah.
Could be anything. Tough July show.
Yeah. P. Rose, Hall of Fame. Actually.
A lot of MSU basketball.
A lot of MSU
basketball. Yeah, that might actually happen. A lot of MSU basketball. Some MSU hockey. Some Big Ten basketball, Michigan, a lot of good stuff. I think it's going to be a fun show as well. I also want to say one other thing. I was really grateful for our sponsors last night in another way. Wound up meeting family friends at a different restaurant, and the service was awful. The food was average, and it made me grateful.
So you went to Reno's?
No, it made me grateful for Front 43 and Cask and Company and Midtown Brewing Company, because when I recommend those places to people, I feel confident when they go, they're going to have a great experience, a great meal, great service, and I feel great about it. And the place I went last night, I gave the smallest tip I've ever given, and only because my wife made me. And it sucked. And I told her this later.
You.
I told her this later because I got there late because I was, covering the game. So I didn't experience.
Because you're usually on time.
Right. And I didn't experience the worst of it. And so they were telling me, but it was very bad. It was bad. It was a new server. But I often still tip 20% because even if service is off, I just feel like who knows where this person's day came from.
Right. And
I tipped on like a $43 bill. I tipped $5. And I still don't feel great about it today.
I wouldn't either.
And
is it a place you've been to before?
I don't think.
Is this a one-time? See, that's why I hate to judge places on a one-time basis.
It was pretty awful. Like my wife got her meal after everybody else had finished eating, and she was there well before I got.
So that's why she didn't want to tip. Yeah.
Well, but it was rough, and there were some other things that. But
it's going to happen. Yeah.
My name is on the tip though. My name is on the bill. Like I don't want to be.
You should have told her to slap her card down.
This one's on you. Yeah. We're gonna. I did because
I can't do it. I can't. It just depends. It would have to be some god awful service and some attitude or something or other. Like I just can't.
It was so bad that the one of the people we were with and my wife went to go find a manager. They couldn't find one at the end, and the table next to us had basically asked the guy who was waiting on us to be fired and got a new waiter.
Jeez.
So he had a rough day.
Yeah,
but even me, I'm like, I don't know where that came from. It might be his first day.
Did they never come back? Is that I need to know like how bad the service? I mean,
it was
the food cold. I mean,
it's dreadful because it's one of those things. I won't go back there. Yeah. I wouldn't, and I certainly wouldn't take anybody there because you wouldn't want to risk that experience. And again, that's what I love about Front 43 and Cask and Company and Midtown Brewing Company. And this was a story almost worth telling, by the way, presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company in downtown Lansing, where you'll get exceptional service. It's a great menu. And cozy, spacious vibe. You know how we feel about it. Great date night in downtown Lansing. Good place for a drink after work, to watch a game. Everything Midtown Brewing Company.
Because it's tough. I mean, the first time you go to a place and you have that experience, I can understand not wanting to go again. But if you went to a place, had a good experience the second time you went, I feel bad for some of these businesses, though. Like you said, you can have one bad night, and
it's hard to find good help too.
Yeah.
I don't. But I also didn't. The part I felt okay is I didn't want, and I don't know if that'll register because apparently nothing else registered with this waiter, but I didn't want him to think what he did was okay.
Right.
It was that bad. That
I think the $5 tip said that.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe it just says I'm cheap. And they'll remember that. And maybe he's a loyal LSJ subscriber and Couch in the Rube listener. He didn't say anything, so I'm counting on that not being the case.
That would be great if he did recognize you and he absolutely despises you now.
I was in a Muskox flannel. My eyes were popping, everything, the whole deal. So I don't. Anyway, I still feel bad about it today. Yeah. Do we want to dig into these?
Go ahead, man. Let's
these
go.
Takes? All right. So I used to think that extreme depth in basketball was overrated, right? And it was a crutch often for a coach and a staff that didn't want to make hard decisions, that wanted to keep people happy and play everybody.
Don't coach my team.
And I think it still can be when you have lesser versions of the same guys that you're playing as backups, and you don't and it doesn't look like Michigan State does right now. But what MSU has done in the second halves, in closing minutes of the last 5 games, speaks to the actual value you can have in extreme depth. But what you have to have is what MSU has, where there are elements of duplication here and there on the roster. Like some of these guys are also, guard, but they're a little different. And obviously Jase Richardson's emergence changes things and changes their ceiling, and I think gives them a guy down the stretch that's going to make the right plays and score. And we saw that again, even after he was in foul trouble in the first half. We saw that in the second half. But you saw in the first half, they're able to rest or sit Richardson when he has 2 quick fouls. And almost immediately they went on a run. He wasn't actually playing that well out of the gate because they have other guys who will have their moments. if the game hadn't gone that way, I don't think they would have kept him on the bench. But when he picks up his third foul, which I didn't think was a good foul, with about 7.5 minutes to go, that's only his third foul because they were able to sit him. And that is the value of sitting guys. Like, if that's your fourth foul, how does he play defensively? What's he thinking? Does he have to sit then if he's, that's the reason you sit a guy when he gets 2 quick fouls. And you can't always do that. You can't do it with Jase Richardson if your team keeps falling further behind. You can't do it with Jase Richardson if you don't have the other guards that Michigan State has. But when you look at look at Cohen Carr, for example. Not the biggest role yesterday against Wisconsin, but 2 dunks that you absolutely remember.
Like Izzo said, they're worth 6 points, man.
Yeah. I mean, those 4 points create momentum because of how electrifying they are. And when they often come, the whole team feeds off them, right? You see, I think Jaden Akins, obviously his game, and we're going to talk about him more, was important for him. It's one game. It's one half.
Hey, it's all right, though. You need one of those games.
You got to start somewhere. And if you're going to have a run late in your senior year, it's got to start with one game, right? So we'll see where game 2 goes against Iowa on Thursday night. But better than not having the game. I'll leave it at that. You see, their depth and their interior is not bad. But you're also seeing some separation. Jaxon Kohler was so good rebounding the ball. At one point, he was exhausted, and I have not seen him that exhausted. And what was interesting is a guy who was a year ago fighting for minutes, fighting for playing time, just wanted to be on the court. We talked about this in the locker room afterwards. He was really, really tired. And Izzo and the staff were just ignoring it because the guy was rebounding everything. And they were like, nope, we're going to get to the next media timeout with this guy on the floor. So there are elements that are emerging, and Jase Richardson's been part of that. What Jackson's doing rebounding has been part of that. But the extreme depth has created second halves and closing minutes that I think we're really seeing the impact of it. And it's not just a motto. It's not just something a slogan. It is really what this team is. And we talked early on about how this team would close games, right? We didn't know if they had closers. We didn't know what they'll do in big possessions. And there still is an element of concern there once in a while. I think Richardson calms that a little bit. But certainly when you're closing games collectively like this because you've worn teams down and your defense is this good on the perimeter, and once again, a team's 5 for 32 from 3, Wisconsin, you're just guarding the line, and they miss some open shots, but teams miss open shots when they're tired and they're out of rhythm, and things have been hard. I don't know that we'll see an MSU team quite like this again. And so people should enjoy it because
don't coach my team.
It's hard to create depth with unselfishness, depth with hunger, and it comes from a place where none of these guys have really done anything before. Like next year, whatever team comes back will have just won a Big Ten title most likely, right? They just got to beat Iowa and they at least got a share of it, and we'll see what they do beyond that. This is one of those years where. And you don't get many of them. Like I always say, the initial rise is the most fun of anything for a fan base. And Michigan State fans really got that in the late 90s. Like I don't think you can ever duplicate that. But because they were down for a little bit, and a lot of students and fans haven't experienced in a while, this has initial rise vibes. It has the fun of that because a Big Ten championship Big Ten championships are always fun and exciting and all that, but it's different because it's something. It's a place that people didn't trust the program would ever get back to watch it happen and to watch the way it's happening.
And now that there's 32 teams, it's even more impressive.
It's more impressive. It's more impressive. Yeah, no.
But do you think, back to Jase and the foul trouble, do you think it just depends on how the referees are? Like the referees were absolutely brutal. I mean, if you see the refs not calling ticky-tack, do you possibly leave Jase in that situation if the refs aren't calling ticky-tack shit? I know they change their minds often, but...
I don't think you do there because they were down 13-4, was it? Like they were not playing well with him. It wasn't like he was – I think you take him out there. The question is how long you leave him out. And immediately when he went out, Cohen Carr had, I think it was Cohen Carr's dunk right after that first dunk, and then they went on a run and they were up 19-17. Like immediately they went on a run without him. And that's not a knock on Jay. Sometimes dynamic change, and that's what worked. And obviously – Kohler getting repeated offensive rebounds, helping Jaden Akins get into that groove, and then he hits those threes. You ride that, and I think if the game state had been different, because we just saw, and I can't remember who the player was, and I was asking Solari about this yesterday. We saw like a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, Izzo make a different decision, and he went back to a guy with 2 fouls. And so we've just seen it. It's not like this is some hard, fast rule. I think if he thought that the game was getting away from them and they were still down 10 or whatever, they couldn't find offense, he would have done it. He wanted when you make the run without him and then you're basically playing even basketball, you prefer to go into the second half with your guy just having 2 fouls. And coaches will tell you that. One of the big reasons I want 6 fouls to be the foul-out number in college basketball, or at least one guy to be able to get to 6 on every team, is not because, I mean, sometimes you don't trust the player, and there are players you can't trust, but they don't trust the officiating. And when you only have 5 fouls, it really just takes 1 or 2 bad calls to change the construct of somebody's game. You know, and they don't, because, and there were a lot of calls yesterday. I did think it was one of the more poorly officiated games where they were at best questionable. And again, you got 5. You get 5 of these things. And it just changes so much.
It just went from ticky-tack, then they were letting guys play. Guys were falling all over each other. I'm like, well, that's not a foul, but you guys are calling like little 2-second hand checks. It was just unbelievable.
It's the inconsistency is a real.
I would love to just listen. I understand it's a tough gig and all that, but I would like to hear from these referees of like, why do you sit there and change the pace of the game consistently during just one game?
Yeah,
I'm not saying one game you call a ticky-tack foul throughout the game, and then the next game you call it another way. It's during a game. You just go different ways. What are you seeing? That's all.
And, you know, somebody asked, and I don't want to step on the quick takes here, but I think somebody asked about.
We've read them already.
Can we talk to officials after the game? Can you interview officials? And there can be a pool reporter that can talk to them. It's not about. Usually you don't do it after a questionable call, but usually it's got to be a really big game-changing call. Not just like you don't, after every game, go up to them after a poor performance. Well, there are 17 questionable calls. Can you explain yourself? You're just not going to get much out of them. I do think there should be more.
Have Elon send him an email. What did you do this game? Tell us.
I do think there should be more accountability in officiating, and I wish there was. The pool reporter stuff is
it's not even like I want them accountable. Like I like you said, I don't need every single call explained to me. Just like what goes on in a flow of a game that makes you want to call certain calls. That's all.
And I would be, I would be, even if you couldn't take free throws off the board, because I think when you change the score later, you're messing with game state and how a team played a possession or whatever. But I would be happy if like first half fouls could be reviewed at halftime, and while the score doesn't change, a player could lose that foul from from their total. You know what I mean? And that would be that would be something if they had that ability on things that were clear and obvious.
Can we talk about Jeremy Fears for a second?
Of course.
I mean, is anybody helping him with his shot? Like, it just seems like everything is kind of short. Is he injured? I just don't know what's going on with him.
Yeah, I think it's just a little confidence on the shot, because those are the floater used to be a strength for him. You know, I mean, this is not a guy who was a bad shooter in high school. He really wasn't. I mean, it's not like he was known as a shooter. That wasn't his. I mean, he was known as a point guard, but he was a decent shooter. And I know we've seen it with the 3-point shots. He's been okay. It's been the floater game that's been way off, and they could really use that. And I think the real key for him, and I've said this before, is continuing to attack like you're confident. It's don't
you have to,
yeah, because that's the only way to do it. It's one of the best things that Jaden Akins has done this year, is to and don't get me wrong, I've seen him adjust his game. I've seen him take it to the basket. I'm talking about Akins here when shots weren't going after a while. But he's continued to, after the very early part of the year where he let it affect his whole game when he wasn't shooting well or wasn't playing that well, he's really done a nice job of still going, almost pretending to be the player he wants to be, even when it doesn't look. And it can be infuriating and frustrating. It's for him. Yeah, and I thought Fears played okay yesterday. Like, he would have had, I think, I don't know, 8, 9, maybe even, he had 5 assists, but he was the point guard who got the best shots for his team that were missed. There were 3 or 4 really good shots, maybe more than that, and he might have had a double-digit assist day. So I thought he played okay. But yeah, that's going to be a thing. And Holloman wasn't quite as good as he's been the last few games. But then again, when
you have Jaden Akins coming through like that, I was really happy for him.
And you get that second half for Jase Richardson. Yeah, for Akins, you do feel good. What do you have?
All right, watch the Kansas game on Saturday against Texas Tech. And it's an interesting story. I know gambling gets the blame, but Jayhawks guard Zeke Mayo ended up getting some people who had some prop bets on him, I think, send him some DMs on Twitter that I found pretty repulsive. But I feel like every time you see one of these stories, you see gambling is to blame. And when do we, because I love gambling. I've never once thought about when I've lost a prop to send anything to any player or anybody like that. So when I see these stories, I think we just have more of an asshole problem and a social media problem than it really is a gambling problem, right? Because I feel like a majority of the people in my life who are gamblers would never think of sending a racist thing or anything to a player after losing some sort of bet. So that kind of bothered me over the weekend. It's like gambling gets the blame. We need to start blaming these assholes and somehow finding them and exposing them, like how we do when we see someone in public at a game, sit there and yell at somebody or berate them, and then they find them and they end up getting fired, right? So I just think we need to focus on the people, the individuals that are doing these kind of things and stop blaming gambling.
So 2 thoughts on that. One is I agree in the sense that most people who blame gambling aren't gamblers.
Right.
So you get these coaches or the people who just don't live in that world.
But I can understand Bill Self trying to defend his guy and guys,
100%.
The chancellor or whatever coming out and saying these aren't Jayhawk fans or something like that. I get you have to kind of do that.
Right. Because I see comments from fans who care that are equally awful to people who've lost money gambling,
right.
Most likely.
Right.
That said, I do think gambling has something to do with this because there are prop bets. There's a reason you can't, in a lot of states, you can't bet in college at least prop bets on individual players if you're in that state. You can in Michigan, but like you can't in Illinois. You can't even bet on Illinois college teams if you're there.
But does that stop it though? Would that stop it? I mean, people are going to still bet on the team, and they're going to say, "Well, who's the player that screwed me?" and still reach out to him. So prop bets or straight bets or whatever, I think people are still going to get pissed.
Yeah, I mean, legalized gambling in the way it's. I mean, there are lots of sides to look at this, positive and negative. The positive of it, like you see these situations now, where in Fresno State and other places where there are investigations into guys who are betting on themselves or whatever on prop bets and getting. But that stuff now it's all regulated. That's why all these people are getting caught. And so people go, well, this didn't used to happen. No, you didn't used to know about it because let me tell you something. I'm somebody who's been placing bets since 1999, 2000. Like, you know what I mean? I wasn't. This stuff was pretty accessible for everybody for a long time. Now, is it easier now? Is it a credit card that's more reliable? It used to be, you did sportsbuck.com back in the day. You waited 6 weeks for your check on a Venezuelan
and you had to
mule
really love gambling back then, though,
you had to.
Because now you have more people that are just nonchalantly just downloading the app and getting the free bonuses, right? Back when we had to do it back in the day, some shady operations, you had to really be passionate about the game.
Or you have a guy. And you go through a website, and that stuff.
But even to get a guy, like again, you have to be a serious game. No, you just have to be serious about it. No nonchalant person's going to go, "Hey, you got a bookie I can talk to?" But
my favorite thing back in the day was you went to you go to like a regular bank with your check from the Royal Ontario Bank of whatever that came on a mule from Venezuela from sportsbook.ag, and you're trying to convince them this is a legitimate. Check. I need you to cash this. Those were good days.
Sign it over to somebody.
Yeah, those were good days. Good days.
Anyway, I don't know. I understand gambling can be a problem for most people, but I just think we have an asshole problem bigger than anything else. But
100%. Do you have anything else?
I do.
Okay.
By the way, I know that you love ball, and I know that you love coaches that look through you and maybe talk down to you. Matt Painter, I heard this over the weekend after a game. I don't know if you heard Matt Painter talking ball with a reporter.
Then you X out of that in your rotation, then everybody has to come over to it. So then once we got to that and we knew the exit, so we called off what we were doing, and then we played it flat, but we touched his shoulder to take the space so they wouldn't get that. Make sense?
Did you understand that?
Yeah, and there was
ball.
There was a lot of stuff in there. Like I did know the term Spain. I think he brought up Spain, right? Later on in that clip, and it was just a pick and roll play, and it has to do with a back screen of a team. Like I knew
his look though after he said it, he looked to the side and stuck his tongue. It's like, dude, really?
But I appreciate that. I respect it. Pretend we know. Make us look it up. speak to us like we're
And he
on a
tapped
higher
me on the
level.
shoulder. Like, how the fuck am I supposed to know that lingo? If I were on the team, I think I would, it's like you guys cover the team. You don't know when he taps him on the shoulder, he's got a backdoor cut. It's like, okay. These guys that know ball, they make it sound like they work for NASA or something. This painter has a punchable face. That just annoyed me to no end,
I think other than Tom Izzo, in terms of access and storylines, Pat Painter and Purdue is the program I'd like to cover most in the Big Ten.
But you know ball.
Well, no, just because I think there's good access and I think he is decent to deal with. He's always one of my, I don't really usually go to Big Ten media days anymore, but he's always one of my favorite coaches to talk to because he doesn't look through you. I'll say that for him. He does not. He gives you his time and he gives you real answers. So for example, if you're doing a story on anything else in the Big Ten and you want multiple Big Ten coaches or multiple Big Ten opinions on something, Pat Painter's like your first go-to because you're going to get a good, thoughtful answer. And he's going to respect your question, your time, and I always respect that. You ready to dig in?
Yeah, let's do it.
All
man.
right, let's dig into these listener takes.
Eric Schultz up first. The time is now for MSU basketball. I won't say it's Izzo's last chance at a run, but if he coaches another 2 to 4 years, it might be his best chance remaining.
You just never know when that chance is going to be, right? So you got to take advantage of it. You don't know what Jase Richardson's going to do. You don't know what the injury luck will be last year. This year, Liz Frank came for one person, and it was Nick Sanders. It was the walk-on who's Barry Sanders' kid.
Bitch.
Better and think about that. Liz never came for Barry Sanders. Lions fans are grateful for that. And this year, Liz only came. We'll talk about taking one for the team. Nick Sanders, hero, right? And anyway,
Thanks, Nick.
So you don't know what's going to happen next year with that. Bad breaks happen. You don't know who's going to stay, who's going to go. You just don't know. You don't know a lot of things. And this year they've been pretty good on injury luck. It might not be his best chance, but it's one of his last best chances. And this team has risen to that point where they're going to be a high enough seed. And they're playing well enough, and they're beating good teams repeatedly. And, yeah, there are a couple teams out there. There are real questions about how they'll do, and could they beat Auburn, and could they beat Duke, and that sort of thing. But they might get a chance in those games deep in the tournament because of how they've done this, and we get a chance to see that. So, yeah,
We need to get Barry in a Muskox flannel.
Barry Sanders? Yeah. That would be.
I'm sorry, is there another Barry that you know?
Well, there's Barry who directs the band. Too. So I didn't know if we were. That he would be another good guy to have.
You know me, I get those confused.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't know which.
Would that shock you if I knew the leader of the band?
Well, no, but Barry's not. He's not actually the leader of the band. I used to play basketball with him. Anyway,
Barry Sanders.
People know Barry. Both Barrys. That's why Barry Sanders is no longer a first name person because of Barry in the band.
Yeah, I guess so.
Should
have known.
Yeah, no, this is. You're right, Eric, though. This is a moment that Michigan State has to try to take advantage of because, go back to 2010, for example. There was an MSU team that did have bad luck with Kalen Lucas getting hurt. But had he not gotten hurt, that still wasn't MSU's best team under Izzo. But that Final Four wound up being winnable. And you just never know when breaks are going to happen. So you got to, pedal to the metal and try to get this done.
Dominic next, number 1. Jeff Kohler will bring Muskox into a new stratosphere. It was one thing when they got the #CouchVouch, but now that my man Jeff is making it rain, show me ordering this week. 2, that officiating crew, let me rephrase, that mother effing entire shit-ass officiating crew deserved the effing electric chair brought to you by Consumers Energy. My God, they were horrendous. And if you devils advocate me, donut boy, I swear to God, they were AIDS. 3, Jason, how's my timeline? First it was, there isn't a blue wall. There will be coverage on Connor Stallions. Just be patient. Then it was, maybe there is a blue curtain. Now it's, nobody cares, Michigan cheated. Followed by a Matt Mancarini Hawaii Spa promotional moment. Bonus take. Love you guys.
That sounds about right, huh? Yeah.
Love you too, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I love the Matt Mancarini promotional thing on his story, too. That was awesome.
Yeah, I just trying to get some love for a story that was really.
Rich Hospitals, if you're interested, here's a link.
It is one of the greatest frustrations in our business. I spend, and don't get me wrong, I put a lot of effort into the 3 quick takes after a game. I spend most of the game thinking about them and writing them and trying to make them good for our readers. Yeah. And so I'm not poo-pooing them. But I essentially spend, 2 hours on those. Maybe I'll update them. 3 hours tops on a quick takes column. Mancarini spends like 2 months on multiple stories. And the readership is not even close. And I understand people love MSU basketball, pays the bills. We're grateful for it. It's why we do the show. It's why I have a job, all that stuff. I'm not knocking that. It's just one of those things where the effort and importance that somebody puts into something sometimes, and I would urge you to read his hospital series. I'll just tweet it out from our show account after the show, because it is worth reading, and it would make me happy if you read it. So thank you.
Money bag. Next, I want to workshop a take about a Frozen Four and Final Four back-to-back weekends, but I don't want to jinx anything.
Probably smart. Yeah. Good. Yeah. It would be an amazing.
Couch will jinx it somehow too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Although I picked Michigan State to beat Wisconsin. People were nervous about that.
I saw
and
that.
they won the game. So I feel better about. I don't feel like I got to pick Iowa to win Thursday just because I know people are nervous about that game too, but I don't feel like there's anything wrapped up in my prediction.
I'm proud of you for staying true to yourself, though, and picking the game.
Thank you.
Yeah. Clint Bainey, one ball Bainey quick take. Tom Izzo's best regular season coaching job in 30 years. He got 10 guys to buy in. Our second 5 would be starters on most Big Ten teams. And one ball bonus take. Spartan hockey wins a natty this year.
It is, I haven't covered all of Izzo's teams, and so there have been, I'm sure, really challenging years that he's done well before. Of the years that I have covered, really since the 2011-12 season, there have been a few that have been, I think, that he's done great. But this is up there because, he has more talent than a few of those years. But, I think. It's not just the 10 guys buying in, which I think is impressive. It's how he's utilized the 10 guys too. That to me, and the way that staff has gotten the most out of those 10 guys. That's hard to do. That's a dance every single game, and it's a dance that changes throughout the year. How to keep guys happy, when to insert somebody into the starting lineup, when to take them out. I mean, you think about the Trey Holloman, Jase Richardson lineup decisions. At the beginning of the year, Frankie Fiddler is a starter on the wing. And then right at the time that they take off and win 13 straight is when Trey Holloman went into the starting lineup. And that seemed to spark things. And then there's a moment where it's like Jase Richardson clearly should be in the starting lineup. You're not starting games as well as you should. And they do that. And I don't know. I think they've done a pretty good job with that roster. The starting games thing doesn't really matter who's in the lineup. Jase Richardson's in the starting lineup yesterday. They still get down 13-4, right? So that doesn't seem to be have all that much of an effect. But I do think this is one of his best coaching jobs. And I think he, in terms of coach of the year, I think Greg Gard's done an incredible job. But at a certain point, if you win the title outright with a team that was picked to finish way down the standings, and there were doubts about your team throughout, it's hard to say you're not the guy.
Professor, next. If you would have told me that freshman Jaxon Kohler, known for all of his post moves, would develop into Dennis Rodman Light, I wouldn't have believed you. Sweat equity. Unpaid producer take. You should have the best take of the week be called in or voice recorded by the person, or maybe just Dominic's. Dominic's recorded would be great. Yeah.
I would enjoy, yeah.
But how would we do that, though? We'd have to read the takes and then.
No, I think it's Dominic's voice over the take, or just have. Oh, I see. Just have Dominic's takes.
Dominic's takes, yeah.
Yeah, we could do that with Dominic. It would be, but
that way you couldn't edit his swear words anymore.
Yeah, sorry, Dominic. Is Dominic? I would ask you. Because he's so good with the written word, and not that he wouldn't be good reading his own words, but is it more effective with you reading his writing? Is the question I would have.
God, I'm terrible at it. Sometimes I botch them. So
people like your voice though. No, this is a good point. To the Jaxon Kohler point, I didn't see this coming. This was the question I asked Izzo yesterday. Of all the things that, I remember Jaxon Kohler as a prospect. I remember watching the highlights and thinking, boy, this guy could be fun to cover, because there was some Jokic to him, right? He the way he moved the ball, and you thought this guy's an offensive guy. And I don't know how that works with, with sort of Izzo's priorities and everything, but it'll be fun. They haven't had a lot of these guys. They've had a few guys who could really pass, the Derek Nixes of the world, guys who are big guys who could do a lot. And Kohler's offense has still been inconsistent. Now we've seen some moments. The 23 points at Illinois is tops among them. But and I still think there's another gear offensively for him. But what he's understood, and I've talked to him about this, is that rebounding was his ticket. And it's not all that dissimilar to a guy like Draymond Green when he got to the NBA. And Draymond Green will tell you this. His rookie year, before he became the guy he kind of became, he said there was one thing that got him on the floor and allowed everything else to develop. He could rebound at an NBA level. And that Kohler is now a guy who has made himself an elite rebounder, and that's going to allow, because he's so important to the team, him to have a chance to develop everything else and become the full player that he wants to be. But yeah, I didn't see this coming. It's a decision by him in terms of how he made his body and how he studies rebounding and going after the ball. And he talked yesterday. I talked to him about this in the locker room. Just that decision that sometimes you're exhausted. You have to go get the ball, and you have to read the ball coming off the rim. So it's heart and it's science and it's a knack for it and it's strong hands. It's a lot of things that he is I didn't think this would be the player he would be. There's no question.
It's science?
Well, there's a science to it I don't know if there's science. But in terms of the ball, the ball is going up on this side. He's, some guys just watch the ball and I'm going to go. He's thinking, I think I know where the ball is going. And that sort of thing, over understanding. And science may be a little strong in that word. But, anyway, it's been incredible to watch because he's a different player than I thought he'd ever be.
Maybe me be next. Carson Cooper is the most improved player from beginning to end of the year. He is unrecognizably coordinated and aggressive compared to his bat mask era in November.
Well, I think the mask had something to do with it, too. Like, you go back to that, I think it was hard to see and it was a pain. But you're right. Because Carson Cooper and maybe Frankie Fiddler for a time, when you looked at the rotation, it was 10 deep, and you said, well, there are 8 for sure guys. And if there was a 10th guy, it was Cooper and maybe Fiddler. And both those guys have found their roles and their knacks, and Cooper's been really good.
Shaq Cooper, man, yesterday. Holy hell. Alley-oops from everywhere.
Yeah, he just plays with a confidence to him, and he knows who he is. I mean, the thing about Carson Cooper is, he knows his own limitations. He always has, especially offensively, and he doesn't try to do things he can't do, and that's sometimes a big part of, you got to be able to do some things really well. But the other thing is you don't hurt the team by doing things you can't do.
Has he talked about the mask? I mean, is that a difference of – I can't imagine playing with that thing, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the conversation.
Look through that thing.
Yeah, we had some conversations about it. It makes a big difference, especially – and he's broken that nose a couple times now, and it's a pain in the ass to have on. And every time you get hit there, it's, But, yeah, I think they were disappointed in how he started the year, too, and he's been really good.
Ryan Schultz next. Number 1, feel awesome for Jaden Akins, and we need him to continue shooting average at worst to have a shot at a deep run. But I'm going to be triggered by anybody saying he's finally out of his slump because of one good half. 2, MSU probably loses if they don't take away the and one. That would have made it 17-4 with a chance at 18-4 early in the game. That said, it's sort of evened out because the refs decided nothing is a shooting foul for the rest of the first half and took a couple from us as well.
Yeah, there's some bizarre. I haven't seen that many. It was like the opposite of the NBA. In the NBA, everything's a shooting foul, right? And it was just so different than that. At least there was some consistency for a half on that. With Akins, absolutely.
It's just a good thing to see. Hopefully, it sparks something, gives them some confidence, right? No one's sitting there going like, the MVP of the team right now. It's just good to see him get the shooting stroke going.
Breaking out of a slump starts with one game, right? And so nobody needs him to. I mean, obviously, if he's red hot for the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, that people would be thrilled, right? But they just what Michigan State needs from Jaden Akins is to be a 40% 3-point shooter. If Jaden Akins is 2 for 5 for 3 every game out the rest of the way, that will be fine for Jaden Akins. That's 40. That's what you need. You need him to hit the big shots, the open shots, and every once in a while have a flurry, and that would go a long way.
Matt Boone next. Number 1, MSU rarely has dads who are enjoyable on social media. Usually it's the moms. However, welcome Jeff Kohler. 2, this is the best defense in my time watching MSU basketball. Also, this is the most Izzo team with doing what he preaches he wants his team to do. And 3, this team has not got to the line as much, but it will go back up in March Madness play. Refs aren't calling in Big Ten play games because they know we're going for contact. In the tournament, it will be a bunch of new refs who have done a less amount of games and will call contact plays.
I think one of the best things this Michigan State team has going for it in terms of depth is that the tournament NCAA tournament is often new refs. It is often called other ways. When the big, I remember, growing up and having conversations with my dad about like the Big Ten having trouble because it was a physical league. It would get to the NCAA tournament with different refs, and you do get guys who don't know Izzo, don't know the players, and you get a call here and there that's just cringeworthy and sometimes really can affect the team. But if you've got as many guys and you can deal with it the way Michigan State can. There are guys that matter to this team, though, and Jase Richardson's not somebody they want in extreme foul trouble, obviously. And I think, Jaxon Kohler's had some issues with 2 first-half fouls that they've got to be careful with him. And he's, a couple of them, I know when he's fouled, you'd seen the look on his face, he shouldn't have done it. And he's got to make sure, because he's also become somebody who's really important to who they are on the glass there. And, I still think there are guys that can't lose, but they're better equipped than most teams heading into a tournament with new refs.
Jebediah next. The 3-point defensive luck pendulum has seemingly swung back in MSU's favor. While our defense has been elite, we're also seeing teams miss multiple wide-open threes when this hadn't been the case for the last few years.
Yeah, again, and some of it is luck, but some of it is you're worn down and you're out of rhythm. If you're not hitting threes, it's, we've seen it on the Michigan State side of things. Like, it's hard to just do it just because you're open now. If your legs are shot, so I think there's something to that. And maybe there is some luck involved. Certainly, you can have, in winning those last 5 games, certainly in a couple of those games, there are a shot or two that could have fallen for the other team that could have changed things. But it didn't.
Scott, you next. Ask and you shall receive. I feel like Jaden Akins heard my question on Friday's show and gave us 19 points with a flurry of threes in the first half and lockdown defense. Now, let's try this again, and I want Akins to have a great senior night and beat the Wolverines. And from Scotty Green's El Camino. Feel good for a guy like Jaden Akins, seeing shots go down. Dude has been elite defensively. Could have easily let his offense get to him. Never did. Kept shooting. Maybe a spark heading down the stretch.
The lesson learned, I think there's another story to do on Akins before the end of the year. And the lesson learned really, and it was learned early, was that Kansas game. Because it got to him. You saw it in his head. And, he answered every question after it. But that really was an unacceptable performance for a guy who's supposed to be leading a team. And they played a lot without him, and it just got to him everywhere. And because he thought that was going to be his moment, his real breakout onto the scene. That's what he wanted. That's what's happened for other seniors at Michigan State. And so, to his credit, he hasn't. But again, they need some level of consistency in shooting to get where they want to go with him. And where they want to go now is really, we're talking postseason. As long as they close this out, they've almost done the job now in the regular season.
David Zandy next. I swear that MSU game was the essay exam answer to why you have players in your program for 4 years. Senior Jaden Akins put his foot in the ground and yelled, "Not today, Wisconsin." A Spartan great performance that led others to great levels. Spartans will be different. And sober yet baked take, Brad Underwood is actually Fred Flintstone. The cartoon version, not John Goodman's version. Credit for coining this goes to my gaming buddy, Nate.
Brad Underwood gets named to a lot of different people. I think MSU fans are pretty happy with his program on Sunday for what they did to Michigan. Probably would have been a good bet to give out. I didn't think of it, so I'm not going to, I didn't make the bet.
I was just about to tweet that out.
Yeah, I made a lot of money, but I forgot to tweet. No, but like Michigan been playing a lot of games in a row, getting by, and Illinois was starting to play a little better. And I saw a stat today where Illinois' record when they've shot over 27% from 3 is like 16-2. So they don't even have to shoot great to be a pretty tough team, right? They just have to shoot okay. I still think without Morez Johnson inside, they're limited, and not enough people talk about that. But they're dangerous on a given day.
Scotty Green's El Camino. Imagine if this team had a game where everything worked. It's why their ceiling is so high. All the guys hitting on all cylinders in a game, anything is possible. Case in point, Holloman struggled, and we beat Wisconsin by 9. And bake take, 100 MGs of pure options again. Max Bulla was suspended because he got caught with D'Antonio's daughter. At least that's what Couch told me.
That's not what Couch told him. That's not. No. It's fix that in post.
Was Couch on 100 MGs?
That would be.
I could see him saying that.
That would be an interesting promotion we could do of pure options, where every listener was asked to do, maybe not 100, but like 40 MGs, and then do your takes.
Sure.
And then we read them. That would be. I would enjoy that.
That would be a great show.
That would be a great show. Yeah. So yeah, and that truly baked takes. If If you're actually baked when you do your bake take, please let us know. Signify it, because we'll enjoy that more. If you want that, again, pureoptions.com. You check out the location information. 3 in the Lansing area. You've got Mount Pleasant, Muskegon, Detroit, and you can download the app and have it right at your fingertips as well.
By the way, though, D'Antonio wouldn't suspend Bola for that.
No.
In that game.
No.
For being with his daughter. I mean, come on, he still let him play. Brian Mahoney next. It felt like Izzo manifested this game for Akins. All week in his press conference, his media availability, even his radio show, Izzo would bring up Akins unprompted. Jaden is going to start hitting shots, or when Jaden starts hitting shots. Witchcraft or Mr. March intuition?
I think he just likes Jaden Akins. I think he appreciates him. I think one thing you'll learn.
I think he knows he needs him to play well.
That too. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think so. He wants this for Akins, but he also wants it for his team.
Right.
And he likes guys who stick around, who are program guys, stuck around for 4 years, and who is kind of I think worked his ass off, because Izzo will talk about the like it, love it, live it players, people in terms of the sport, and Akins is on the high end of that. Like, he puts an awful lot into this, and not everybody, even the guys who are really good, do quite as much.
And we said, would somebody please guard somebody?
Matt C. next. Jaden Akins is the best defensive player in the country, and it's not close. He's completely dominated the best guards in the conference over this 5-game stretch. And bake take, Auburn is scary, but after a few MGs, I remember that's still Bruce Pearl, and we can't live in a world where he wins the national title.
Another great ad for Pure Options here. If you're getting concerned about Auburn or Duke, a few MGs of Pure Options, and all of a sudden it
makes you realize Bruce Pearl cannot win a natty.
That's right. That can't happen.
God.
Look, there are always teams that seem daunting. And part of it is it's the unknown, right? The SEC seems like this league that's got a lot of really good teams, and they do. But Michigan State's really good, and the more you trust that, the less daunting it seems. And in a 1-game scenario, I think there's nobody in the country Michigan State can't beat. But very rarely are you going to be the team that's head and shoulders above everybody else. Are you going to be the team that's Auburn, right? Michigan State's had a couple teams at their best. 2014, that's sort of the shame of that team, is when they were cooking, they were that team. They were the team that probably everybody feared. They were the team that a 1-seed Virginia ran into in the Sweet 16 in Madison Square Garden before the UConn game, and Virginia had their season outs. And that wasn't like a snake-bitten Virginia team. Virginia ran into a better team. Michigan State was a 4-seed because of what had happened during the season. So, I wouldn't. There's no point in being scared of anybody, but if you are, Pure Options is here for you.
Todd Trustel next. This team, as it is, can make a Sweet 16 as is. If it wants more, it needs a point guard with a threat from mid-range. And bonus, look at Couch impressing Izzo in the press conference. Way to go, kid.
Yeah, it's not the goal.
Right now, either you're stuttering or I'm not picking it up because it's a whoa.
That's more of our conversations right there. That's really the way it usually goes. Yeah. But
did he compliment you or something?
Yeah, no. What I asked a good question on Kohler, and I try to ask good questions, but I sometimes don't. I try to wait late in the press conference or wait and see what else has been asked, because if nobody has to know what I'm thinking, that's best. But if it's not getting asked or it's not getting asked correctly, that's my biggest pet peeve in press conferences. Sometimes the tone gets set by a bad question, and or the topic you really want. You don't want to duplicate a topic, but you don't get the answer you want because the question isn't asked that well. I kind of wish, and everybody should have the right to ask questions, but I kind of wish there were like tiers of questioners, and if in the first people who are not based on, and not this would not be based on like, hey, I work for the New York Times or anything. This would be based on like quality of questions you've asked over time, and so
that's why you need Hondo back. Start it off.
Yeah.
Andrew Zawiza next. I'd rather have a program built on high school recruits competing for championships 3 of every 4 years than a roster of transfers competing for championships 4 of 4 years. I'd rather have 10 lesser players competing their asses off, maximizing themselves, than a few AJ Stores.
It would be interesting to see how people felt about this, because I think if the other 3 years were always rough, it would be hard for people. And you might feel differently. I do think there is something about a team that looks more like teams. Like, Michigan State fans are yet to experience what other programs are, like Illinois with a completely new roster. the Arkansas of the world, Kansas State, all these places that have brand new rosters that are NIL built. And I don't think there's the same connection with those teams. And so that makes this group, extra special in that sense. And it's not just high school recruits. It's guys who you've gotten to know the way you used to get to know guys in the old era. Guys who've chosen your school and chosen to stay with your school, and there's a connection there. And so that is definitely adds to this.
Eric Smith next. I love this MSU team. How could he not? They can't shoot worth a lick, but they rebound and play lockdown defense. Definition of team. This has been such a fun season, showing the country Izzo ball is still relevant and baked. That was the worst officiating crew all year, and that is saying a lot. Bonus. There's a very fine line between Wisconsin being tough and physical and just downright being dirty. They seem to skirt that line every year.
I don't know if they were. I didn't notice it. I didn't. Maybe there's, I didn't notice that.
Seems like they were a little aggressive on D, but nothing crazy.
Yeah. I like that Wisconsin team. I think, you're picking teams to win the Big Ten tournament. Wisconsin would still be one of my favorites. And, I think Wisconsin, Oregon, UCLA, teams like that, I still really like.
The voice of Gorham softball next. I rewatch The Wire every year, beginning the day after the Super Bowl. Dominic's just a gangster, I suppose, take was among the finest in show history.
Yeah, I respect. Dominic just comes up with great stuff all the time. That's why he's Dominic. He's a made man on this show, and he's helped make this show for a long time. And it's always quality, and he puts thought into it. And there's no way that stuff always comes quickly and easily. If it does, then he's just brilliant beyond anything we know, and we should have him have a bigger role in this.
Spartan Sugar next. The Athletics Michigan beat writer Lindsey Schnell actually wrote after Illinois pasted them Sunday, while a conference championship would be nice, what really matters is receiving a double bye in the Big Ten tournament. Wow. Just incredible.
Couple things here.
Welcome to the blue wall.
Yeah, Lindsey Schnell is not the Athletics Michigan beat writer. They do not have a Michigan beat writer. She was covering that game. She was doing a quick write-up on that game from afar. There was no dateline on that game, so she wasn't at the game. And I know Lindsey a little bit. And back when I was doing the AP poll and doing those columns weekly on my picks, my votes, she also had a vote. And we would talk sometimes just about some of the reaction people would give and all that sort of stuff. And I've known her for a little while. She used to work at Sports Illustrated. She's good, and she's in a tough spot. Like, she's from the West Coast. In other conferences, that is what matters. There clearly is a lack of understanding there in the Big Ten and Big Ten culture, and the Big Ten regular season being the championship. And it was a bad line. I read it. I nearly sent her a message. I did not. I just thought I'd let it lie, and nearly told her, "Hey, you may want to fix this." But if it becomes a thing more and more, I'll jump in.
You nearly sent it, so you had like the text like going, and you're like, I should.
I was gonna say, yeah, she doesn't need that shit. But I know what's going on in the Athletic. They have they've de-emphasized all this. I don't know how much else she has to go. It was not a great line. We've all written stupid lines, but it clearly showed a lack of understanding and connect. And in the comments, part of the reason I didn't send it is the comments under the story sort of did the work for me. People are pointing that out.
Gorjo next. We all owe an apology to Zappala. Last May, Graham was calling him size man, Zappala, and said he would not be a capable Big Ten big man. He is way more than a depth piece. He's got whatever the opposite of a finesse game is, and turns out it's exactly the edge this team needs.
It was a great pickup, and it was a needle that was threaded because he doesn't force, he didn't need minutes over Jaxon Kohler. Carson Cooper is better than him in certain ways. It doesn't diminish entirely Xavier Booker's ability to be on the floor. But he does give you size, and he gives you decent hands, and he's an imperfect player. There's no question. He's not the quickest guy in the world. There's certain matchups that are trouble, but he's been good. He's been effective, and it was a good get, and it was a good identification, evaluation. Could have used him a year earlier, but he certainly has been a good pickup for them. And apparently it's Zapawa is how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
I thought it was Zappala until I don't know.
asked you that. I've heard Zapawa.
Yeah, it's
I
Zapawa.
say Zapala.
Yeah, it's Zapawa. Even there's no L. There's. I mean, it's
Holloman.
It's the Cockburn thing. You know, like it's.
It is?
Yeah, it's.
I don't know. I don't know if it's anything close to Cockburn, where it's Coburn with cock in it.
Yeah.
Cock is silent.
At a certain point, you have to spell your name how it's pronounced.
Yeah. Alex Mayer, number one, Carson Cooper's development, both defensively and as a lob threat, is quite possibly the thing that lets MSU go on a deep run. 2, Fears shoots his jump shot on the way down. Should be a pretty easy fix. 3, give me Wisconsin to win the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, I didn't mean to step on your Wisconsin to win the Big Ten tournament thing there, Alex. I don't think Carson Cooper's lob threat is like the thing that lets MSU go on a Big Ten run, but he is not somebody who out there. He's somebody that they can trust on lobs. And I asked Jeremy Fears, I think it was, about this last week, about the big men and the trust that the guards have in them. And that's really important. They didn't have that all the time with Mady Sissoko. Now, early on, you remember, when they played Gonzaga on the boat, and you had Hogard to Sissoko, and you had some good stuff going there. But they didn't trust that he saw what they saw, and they didn't trust his hands. And that affects a guard when you don't think that's going to happen. And I think they trust Carson Cooper at the rim. Doesn't always work, but they trust him. And it's been an important development.
Detroit Spartan next. Hot take. A Big Ten champion should be a 1 seed. Best take. The Oscars are trash, and sadly, movies are getting worse. And bake take. Severance is the best show on television in years.
Did you watch the Oscars last night?
No.
I didn't either.
3.5 hours. I mean, I love Conan O'Brien.
Me too.
I wanted to tune in for him a little bit, but I have the only movie I saw was Complete Unknown. The other stuff, I mean,
that's the thing. I don't watch anywhere near as many movies as I used to.
Yeah.
And so that's part of it. And I'll probably watch clips of Conan because I enjoy Conan a lot.
I mean, there's shows that I listen to that play clips of the
Yeah.
Drew Lane podcast. He'll end up talking about it, so I'll hear stuff that way. But I just couldn't imagine sitting down for 3.5 hours for that stuff.
To Detroit Spartans' first one, the Big Ten champion should be a 1 seed. I don't. I'm surprised that the Big Ten. You can tell the Big Ten doesn't care as much about hoops as they do football. Because if this is football, they would already have demanded it. Like that's what they're essentially doing. In football in the playoff, it's like the SEC and Big Ten are like, we get 4 spots. It doesn't matter if they're worthy. It doesn't matter what. We get 4 spots. I mean, it's just shit because you're going to get in a 14 or 16 team playoff, whatever it winds up being in college football. You're going to get 4 teams in. You got 18 teams in your league. You're going to get 4 in most years. Certainly, if they're deserving. You don't need to put your foot on the scale and make everybody hate you. I'm glad they don't do that in basketball. But there would be an argument that with 18 teams that you get a 1 seed. Now, I'm glad it's not that way. I'm glad the basketball tournament still operates the way it does. But you could see an argument where the SEC, ACC, the 4 major conference all got a 1 seed if you won the league. The question then would be, would these leagues? Because I'd like if you want the auto bid to be the Big Ten tournament or the conference tournament, I'd like that to be the regular season because that's really what anybody can make a run in the postseason tournament. In the ACC, they value the postseason tournament bigger than the regular season, which means they waste 2 months of their time. But it would have to be the regular season because that's where it's earned, too. You'd have to say the ACC champion in the regular season, the SEC champion in the regular season, the Big Ten champion in the regular season gets the 1 seed.
T-Bone's dad next. Spite take. I want both MSU and Michigan to win their next games, providing Michigan a glimmer of false hope for a share of the title before MSU eviscerates them next Sunday to stand alone at the top.
Where are you on this? Would you rather it gets clinched entirely? So if Michigan loses to Maryland on Wednesday, Michigan State can clinch the outright title. Either way, they can clinch a share of the title at Iowa on Thursday. They can clinch the outright title, making the game in terms of the standings meaningless on Sunday. Would you rather that game be meaningless, the title already decided, and they play Michigan? And obviously, if you lose to Michigan, it still is a shitty way to end a season. It's a shitty way to do senior day. You got to come out and you got to win that game. Would you rather there's something at stake or not?
I mean, obviously it's 50-50 for me. If I'd be okay with it not mattering, but I think it would be great maybe for the team, right? On senior day against Michigan, they should be favored in that. I mean, I'm not scared of that game. So I think that I would like to have that game mean something.
Yeah, to have that, because if they win that,
But if it didn't at the end, I would be like, all right, cool.
It'd most likely
it's nice to not have to worry about some shit like that. But, I mean, I think it possibly could be good going into March, maybe some momentum. But
yeah, and just, I mean, they would likely already have a share of the title. Obviously, they beat Iowa. They'd have a share of the title locked up, so you'd have the banner ready to go and everything. And if you beat Michigan, you get it outright. I think that's probably the best scenario, but I think more Michigan State fans are probably rooting for Maryland to finish the job on Wednesday night.
Fart soup next. Number 1, Couch can't be trusted. I'm reading all the wonderful happy-go-lucky news stories after today's win, yet I'm reminded this is the same guy who bet me Jaxon Kohler would shoot more than 35% on the season and once wrote that Javon Bess would have a major offensive impact. Shame. And from Jeff Kohler. I messaged Couch in January that I'd backstop that bet. 41% in conference and 30 on the season. If he doesn't hit that by the last game, I'll buy for the both of you.
That's Muskox man Jeff Kohler chiming in there.
Is he talking about buying Muskox for people?
I think it's probably a beer is what he's probably thinking. But, there's an awful nice thing. If you have somebody in your life who you think could use a Muskox flannel, could use a pick-me-up, there's nothing nicer. Like, if somebody bought me a Muskox flannel, or if you buy somebody a Muskox flannel, what you're saying is I care about how you feel, how you look. That is an awful nice gift. Again, you go to gomuskox.com. The promo code is Fix It in Post for $15 off your flannel purchase, and you can give a gift that people will remember you for.
Like my father-in-law. He loved it. It's one of the best gifts I've ever gotten him.
Father-in-law gift. It's the ideal father-in-law gift.
It really is.
A Muskox flannel. To the point, hold on. Give me some Hoff real quick because I want to fire up Jackson's numbers here. Absolutely. I mean, fucking everybody masturbates.
I ride through the city's backside. I see the stars come out of the sky. Yeah, the bright in the hollow sky.
Okay, so on the season right now, he is 13 for 43, right? And hold on, I want to make sure I got this, what the bet is.
So good tonight.
Okay, so he's 41% in conference and he's 30% on the season, as Jeff mentions. But it's 35. If he doesn't shoot better than 35%, that he'd buy. So it's not he's not a volume 3-point shooter. So he's at 30%. To get to 35%, he's going to have to probably shoot 50% the rest of the way. But because there aren't that many games left, but it's possible. It is possible, and it's 40% in conference play is not that bad. I know he had the big game at Illinois, but overall, like if you look at his game by game stuff, I know he's missed his last 4, but before that, he was 1 for 2 at Oregon, 4 for 5 at Illinois, 1 for 2 against Purdue. You go back a couple games before that, 2 for 4 against Minnesota. He's been shooting at a pretty high clip before these last 2 games.
Marty next. Bake take. If Kohler shoots 40% from 3 and averages a double-double, 14 points and 12 rebounds next season, he could be in the running for Big Ten Player of the Year.
14 and 12 usually doesn't get it done. Usually it's going to be somebody in the 18, 19 point range at least. So he would have to offensively really step up his game. And I'm not saying that's out of the realm of his abilities, but it usually those guys are 19 and 20 point guys who win the Conference Player of the Year.
Suburban Spartan Dad next. Overshadowed by how well other guys played, Carson Cooper reliably catching dives and oops just completely changes this team offensively. Posts can't hedge as aggressively to stop Jase, Trey, Jeremy, or Jaden on drives or off high pick and rolls so they can get into the middle at will.
Yeah, and there are a lot of things that, I do think the fact that Carson Cooper isn't somebody defenses completely ignore. I noticed even with Jaxon and the 3-point shot, Wisconsin played him out to the 3-point line, right? That's different than a few weeks ago before he started hitting them. That scouting report has changed, right? That creates spacing, and that's half the value of the stretch for a position. Look, we've talked about this already, but Carson Cooper's had a good year, and he's been better than he was early, and I think people are pretty happy with him.
Equal man next. Number 1, Cooper's D and Kohler's rebounding are elite and are fueled by head and heart. 2, the Final Four is in Detroit in 2027, so we know Izzo wants to make that happen. And 3, transplant Travis Walton's Spartan dog mentality into Booker, and he's the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, it's one thing that's hard to do, though, right? I mean, at some point that light's either going to come on for Booker or it's not. And, I don't think you give up on him. I think, we saw signs. Look at Kohler's junior year and what he's become as a rebounder and what he's become as a physical player. Now, he had more of that to him. You saw some of the intent last year and other things. But, there are guys who it happens for late. So I don't know that it's going to happen for Booker. But I wouldn't write him off as long as he wants to be part of the program. I think he's got value, and the hope is you develop him into something that, because he does have skills and gifts that not everybody has. The second one on the Final Four is in Detroit in 2027, so Izzo will want to make that happen. I'm torn on this because he will tell you, and the players, like when the Final Four is in Detroit, when the NCAA tournament's in Detroit, it's less special in some ways for them because it's not like a trip somewhere. You're like, everybody's around. It's just a bus ride down the road. It's not like these guys need special trips. I mean, they go to L.A. and they go to Hawaii. They do all sorts of stuff. And there's pressure on it. I don't think it's as fun a Final Four as other Final Fours are when it's in Detroit. I cringe when it's in Detroit because I know for me, I'm like, every waddling member of the media is going to be around. It's going to be just, I hate that it's, yeah. I mean, I felt all of Fred Heumann. Fred Heumann will be there in 2027. Trust me.
David Cox. Also, I think Jase Richardson may be the best player in the country. Kohler is a superstar in the wings.
Clearly, I missed another one from David Cox. He began with also. So, apologize. I don't know what I did there, David. Yeah, Jase Richardson may be the best player in the country. I don't think that's. I think that, but I can understand why you would be excited about him, and that's an okay thought.
Joey Sparty next. Listening to podcasts at 1.3x speed makes the funky section in the show opener rip. The Hoff is also great at 1.3. Try it on the show. And Bake Take. Listening to podcasts at 1.3 speed makes the funky. Wait, I just read that. Wait, what's happening?
Because he's baked.
Funky. So am I, apparently. The Hoff is also great. Try it on the show. All right.
Appreciate you, Joey.
See, as someone that rereads things, sometimes I'm not, gives me PTSD. I'm sorry. Evan next. Number 1, MSU's three-point defense has been elite, but versus Wisconsin, I will say they did miss a good amount of open threes. And 2, Graham's unpublished column about Jase's freshman rise costing Izzo a second championship might be spot on.
Yeah, it's something you can't worry about because this team has a much better chance at pulling off something incredible in March because of who he's become, right? And so, if you were just to try to, put together the perfect year and the perfect team to do it once, ideally, you can look at you can think, well, look who else they'll have back next year. Look at, another year for Jeremy Fears where he actually gets an offseason to work on his game that he didn't get. That usual freshman to sophomore year thing that is a huge moment for improvement. He didn't get that. So next year he gets that. You think you get Kohler and Cooper back. We'll see about Booker. You get a guy like Cohen Carr who we've seen his improvement come back. Holloman, like there's a couple of intriguing guys coming in. And if you add Jase Richardson to that, you're like, huh. And so, yes, if you were trying to build one team that could do it, you would say next year with Jase Richardson, and would it be better if they were a little less this year to get to that? You can make that argument, and so you can't think that way. And I still think there's a 50-50 chance he comes back. I do. I look at he's going to be probably a first-round pick if he wants to go. But he's also 19, and the one thing I think that you have to take some, this isn't Deontay Davis in terms of the pressure to make money, which they can now do anyway with NIL, or not having the right guidance. He's going to have a dad who has money and has done this and stayed a second year and became an All-American. And so if together as collectively, and his mom is kind of fostered his basketball career and knows her son, like if collectively they decide he's ready for the NBA, this is his moment, this is what's best for him, I think you just have to respect that and respect the year you had with him and know that it's done with it's done with a lot of thought and not something that's probably a mistake. But I think it's still 50-50 because I think these guys know what it's like to be 19 in the NBA and how lonely that is and how difficult that is and how much fun it is to be the star when you're also making $1 million a year playing at Michigan State. And so if your draft, as long as your draft status isn't going to shrink, I think there's real value in that. So I still think it's very much 50-50.
Captain Sparty next. Jase Richardson stays, and we win back-to-back ships, and Izzo retires.
There you go. That's all. We don't even need to do any more shows.
Is that big take?
No, it's all there.
Okay.
The whole.
Travis Maynard, number one, Jase's a desire to get Tom his second natty is on a deeper level. This plus NIL will keep him around one more year. And 2, Jeremy Fears will have the biggest jump next season after getting a real offseason of development versus rehab. And 3, Fears, Jase, and Trey will be the best backcourt in the country.
There you go. I just stepped on Travis's takes again. I think, first of all, Fears and Trey, Jase Richardson's a difference maker. And so just having Fears and Trey Holloman with Kurt Tang, another guard, would not be the same. But I think the fact that there are, they're going to be really good next year either way. The question is, do they have that next gear to them? And Richardson's a next gear guy. Do I think somebody like Cohen Carr could take that and be a star? Like if he has a great offseason and all of a sudden he's a 13.7 rebound guy who hits some threes like that. There are elements that even beyond Jase Richardson could make them closer to elite next year or have a chance. But obviously, Jase will be a huge part of that if he decides to come back.
Chris next. Trust the process when it comes to MSU athletics right now. Whether it's finding coaches like Nightingale or Freilich to resurrect programs or trusting a legend to find his groove in Izzo, Haller knows exactly what he's doing, which is why people need to trust in what Smith is doing for football too.
Well, you don't always have a 100% hit rate, right? I mean, he already had to make a switch at volleyball, which was his hire. So you never know. That's not to say I wouldn't.
Well, if you're going to miss, volleyball might be the one.
Well, don't miss in football. Right. Certainly, yeah, right. That's the thing. But yeah, no, there's a lot of good stuff going on. I look at the standings and I look at these other programs and I think about what it would be like to cover, a team that's 15th in basketball and 14th in women's basketball and didn't have hockey or was at the bottom. Like it is incredible, and it is there's no doubt about that. And there's been some really good decisions made. And some really good, especially in the non-revs, so to speak, or not football, men's basketball. And we'll see with football. And football will ultimately impact how people feel in a lot of ways. But by being this strong, once the winter sports start, you spend a lot of the school year feeling good. And football is not the end-all, be-all at Michigan State the way it is some other places. But it's really an important part of the psyche, and so that's still going to matter.
Mr. Neurotic Pants, number one, sadly, all of MSU's athletic success will be taken for granted if MSU football doesn't become relevant again. A full Munn Ice Arena means a 10-minute line and sidestepping people in the concourse. Spartan Stadium is a suffocating crush of humanity. And 2, outdoor NHL games require intoxication.
Or pure options, yep. And, I did the game at Wrigley. I was layered. Muskox flannel was part of it, but I was definitely layered. Some of it, people appreciate this. I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, people will be frustrated with football, and Alan Haller will not last as the AD if the football program doesn't become relevant, right? But I think people do appreciate where things are. I don't think people are that short-sighted or single-minded, not around MSU, because they've seen it other ways, and they understand that this is they've seen what hockey was for a decade, where it was really, really frustrating. And people are older, and even the last few years have seen the men's basketball program not as fun. People have seen the women's basketball program up and down. People know when things are good, and in a lot of realms, things are pretty good right now.
Some dude next. Number one, for as fucked up as Twitter can be at its worst, it sure is a hell of a lot fun on a day like Sunday. And 2, Couch, I believe this team has reached matchup proof. You have great bigs? No problem. Great guards? No problem. Bring it. And 3, look for St. John's and MSU to be in the same bracket, creating the insane Izzo-Patino matchup that CBS will die for.
We should, maybe I'll do this, but come up with a list of, games that would look like conspiracies. Not conspiracies, but like they were paired intentionally. Because the NCAA selection committee always suggests that doesn't happen, and then all of a sudden Illinois is playing Loyola in the second round. You're like, that's crap. Like that was entirely set up to happen. Or, obviously if Vanderbilt and Michigan State are playing at any point in the same bracket and it's A.J. Hoggard versus Izzo, that just looks contrived for sure. To the matchup proof thing, yeah, that's a good. I guess we'll find out. I still think matchup proof means you have a lineup that is matchup proof, and the guards, and they've been so good defensively. I get the claim. I think within the team they can find a decent matchup for almost any team they're playing. But I don't think it's obvious all the time, right? And so that's. But the Maryland game really helped me think differently in this last week about them as that, because I thought Maryland was going to be a bad matchup for them, and right away, 5-6 minutes in, I realized I had been wrong.
David Cox next. If you win the Big Ten by 3 fucking games, then you better damn well have a first-team all-conference player. 3 games. Jase is a player of the year, not even close. He destroyed them when he was on the court. He's killed every top team. Jaden is defensive player of the year, and Izzo, coach of the year. Recognize.
I think they're 1 game up on Michigan, but I see what you're saying. Like the Michigan State will be a really fascinating team to see how they're judged in the postseason awards, because part of the challenge with depth is that you don't have those are individual awards, right? And you got this collection that created something, but you've also won the league. And I think how they're judged. What you really want to see is somehow, and now the other thing. Remember, there are 18 teams. So you have 3 all-conference teams, first team, second team, third team. It's an average of less than 1 guy per school on a team. So that's another thing. But what you really want to see, I think, most importantly, is can you get multiple guys in the third team somewhere, right? And that would, I don't know, that I think, but Michigan State's going to make it tough because it is a tough thing to judge, and winning does matter. It should matter to those awards.
Kurt Wisniewski, number 1, the Spartans will be a 2 seed in the big dance. And bonus, the Wings need that blockbuster trade for Connor McDavid.
Whoa.
Is that possible?
That would be amazing, but I don't.
I mean, like realistic, or
not that I've read, but I don't read a lot, so I don't know. I don't know if it is. I think they're almost locked in to be a 2 seed. I don't know that they can. Maybe they can get to that 1 line if they won out. But most likely a 2 seed. I don't know. I don't see them falling below the 2 seed unless they lose to Iowa or something like that.
Couch on Fire. Hockey co-championship and a 1 seed, and now let's get a basketball championship and a 1 seed. Would make for a nice week. And baked, if the Red Wings can get back on track, shaping up to get all 4 Detroit teams in the playoffs within these 2 years, who had that on their bingo card?
It's been cool. It's been fun to see the Pistons. Like the Pistons-Knicks is going to be a first-round series, which means James Edwards is going to get to be back on this show. And by the way, if the Pistons,
we're dropping MFers now.
If the Pistons win that series, James has to come home. He cannot cover the lesser team for the Athletic. I mean, I know it's a shame, and the Athletic moved him all the way out there, but he's got to come back. That's just them's the rules. There's no question about it.
Nate next. Too many MSU fans are fine with tying with Minnesota for the Big Ten Hockey Championship, and it's fucking soft. At least the players seem to know they choked. Thanks for pointing out the subdued celebration after the second Notre Dame game, Graham.
Wow. Well, a couple things. One, I mean, winning a Big Ten championship, even a co-championship, and people don't call it co. It just is what it is. They share. I still think it's impressive. Minnesota's a really good team. They didn't beat Penn State, but look how much Minnesota struggled with them. And then when they had to take care of business on the road against Notre Dame, they did. I don't think they choked. In fact, if you talk to some of them, they thought they played some of their best hockey in that second game Saturday at times. It just, those are the bounces sometimes, and Penn State was playing really well. But, I don't think the subdued celebration had anything to do with tying Minnesota. They were thrilled. I think it had to do with winning it a year before and having more. I mean, this wasn't this gloves in the air, end-all, be-all moment. Let's take a really quick break. We come back. We'll get into more of your takes. Couch in the Rube, presented by Pure Options, Craft Cannabis, and our Monday afternoon show brought to you by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels.
Hey, sports fans, are you tired of the same old routine? Looking for a way to unwind after a long day? Look no further than Pure Options, the premier destination for all of your cannabis needs in Lansing, Detroit, Muskegon, and Mount Pleasant. Whether you're cheering for the Lions, Spartans, or the Wolverines, Pure Options has everything you need to elevate your game day experience. Mention Couch the Rube when you visit Pure Options and get a Pro Grow 8th with a $50 purchase. It's our way of saying thank you for being a loyal listener. Swing by Pure Options today and elevate your cannabis experience to a whole new level. Firekeeper's online casino and sportsbook is the site to play from your phone, tablet, or laptop. Get in on all the football action with pre- and in-game wagering. There's showdowns every week in football that you can't miss. Plus, the college and pro hoops are red hot, and the pucks are cool. Get your first casino deposit and sports wager matched up to $500 each. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Where else can you cheer on your team? Enjoy a mouth-watering burger or savory sushi. Sip on handcrafted cocktails or one of 46 beers on tap. Take your game day or date night to Cask & Company Kitchen Bar or Front 43 Neighborhood Pub near Frandor. Two amazing places with one awesome blended modern American Asian menu. Catch the game on one of 30 60-inch TVs or stop in for the all-you-can-eat lunch buffet. Enjoy happy hour or elevate your night out at Cask & Company or Front 43 on East Saginaw in Lansing. Ever wonder how comfortable you can be and how good you can look? Put on a Muskox flannel and find out. Muskox has new arrivals for this fall, including the Caper Green Grand Flannel, which even makes couch look good. Muskox is a Detroit-based flannel company that creates soft and durable flannels made to last a lifetime. They become a great partner with Couch and the Rube, not just because they make us look good and feel good, but because they're good people too, and a socially conscious company. For every $100 purchase, $10 is donated to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation. Muskox flannels are designed with 100% cotton that is ethically sourced and double brushed for softness. Feel the quality and comfort of a Muskox flannel by ordering at gomuskox.com, where Couch and the Rube listeners can enjoy $15 off their flannel purchase with the promo code HOFF. Come enjoy irresistible, award-winning, handcrafted donuts and locally roasted coffee at Groovy Donuts. Surprise your family or coworkers with special holiday designs and flavors, or put the perfect finishing touch on an event with a custom order. Birthdays, weddings, gender reveals, our friends at Groovy Donuts are your answer. Experience the Groovy Donuts difference for yourself on Lake Lansing Road in East Lansing or in Williamston. Get more information or place an order at groovydonuts.com.
Find Couch and the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite podcast addict.
Couch and the Rube, presented by our friends at Pure Options Craft Cannabis, and our Monday afternoon show brought to you by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. By the way, Muskox, the Field Grand Flannel Vintage Sky has been re-released, and they're heavyweight cotton fabric, and I'm telling you, it looks incredible. Talk about eyes popping. This one, the Vintage Sky, may be the new go-to for me. I'm going to definitely order this. You can as well. GoMuskox.com. And you can use the promo code FIXITINPOST for $15 off your flannel purchase. Also, a reminder, tomorrow, Tuesday, I don't know when you're listening to this, but Tuesday is Fat Tuesday, a day for all of us to celebrate ourselves. Right. Yeah. So Groovy Donuts is open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Fat Tuesday. So if you want punchkis, go to Groovy Donuts, either location, Williamston, Lake Lansing, East Lansing, Lake Lansing Road, or in Williamston as well. All right, back to your takes.
Jay Riemenschneider next. Most preseason predictions had Michigan middle of the pack. I had a take that they would be in contention the last week, even with the new staff and roster. I was right, but this past weekend may have cemented them a runner-up finish to a rival, no less.
Yeah, I mean, they've won a lot of close games. That's why their net ranking is where it is, and they there's just not been a huge – but you have to give a team credit for winning those. Unfortunately for them, their sort of stretch of a lot of games in a short period happened just now. They looked a little worn down. They ran into an Illinois team that's already gone through its worst patch. It sort of figured things out a little bit. And I don't want to say it was predictable. Again, if it had been more predictable, I should have given out the bet. But, I think Michigan, for the most part, has overachieved a little bit this season. And, again, they're still in a spot, though, where if they beat Maryland at home Wednesday, they're playing for a share of the Big Ten title on Saturday, and that's a pretty good place to be. Maryland's a tough matchup. We'll see how that goes.
Aaron Voss next. Complainers about Jonathan Smith being ho-hum ought to observe Adam Nightingale's back-to-back titles. There's more than one way to coach, from Izzo's intensity to Nightingale's restraint. And bonus, Greg Gard should trade in his loosened tie look for a Muskox flannel.
Get all coaches with Muskox flannels. Be a whole new thing. Love it. Yeah.
That would be the true test for Muskox. Could you make Greg Gard look good?
Oh.
What?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
That's fair.
Right?
It's fair. I don't think he's a bad-looking guy, is he? I mean, if you look at us.
Dude, if we're ugly, Greg Gard is fucking ugly. What are you talking about here? Right? I'm just saying. Like, no offense to Greg Gard. I think Greg would even tell you, like, yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm ugly. I'm just saying.
There are a lot of ugly people in this world. I've never really looked at Greg Gard and thought that man is ugly. I mean, there are lots of people I look at.
Did you think he was hot?
I didn't say he was hot. I've never thought Greg Gard was hot. I've never said that.
Well, I'm not saying he's a mutant. I'm just, he's a schlubby kind of dude looking guy, right?
Yeah, I don't
Damn,
find
dude, I didn't know you were such a Greg Gard guy. I'm not trying to
I just don't find him unappealing.
All right. I didn't know you were a big Greg Gard guy.
In terms of attractiveness.
See him in a Speedo. Jesus. Yeah. My bad.
To the question. Oh, yeah. I do think it's important that there is a good point here, though. Like, people want more emotion when things are going wrong from Jonathan Smith. And that's, everybody's got to be themselves, right? And people get used to that with Izzo. They like people to look like they care as much as they do. And I think that's an important thing, that even if something's not going right, doesn't mean they care any less. And Nightingale's mostly had things going right, but he is, the opposite of Izzo and much more restrained.
Spartan 18770, in today's $1 million NIL deals and social influencer players, MSU is that rare team whose single purpose is to just win. Enjoy this season, fans. This type of team doesn't come around very often.
There was a point, and I can't remember when it was. It's been a couple months, where somebody said, what was this team's greatest strength? And Izzo made this comment that was it was convoluted, because he was typical Izzo verbiage. It was unclear what he meant, and he tripped over the sentence and said things that were backwards and didn't use the right words. It's Izzo, right? But he did say that the greatest strength, like the winning, these guys put winning first. The thing about this team is they win and want to win, and there is a hunger to them, and there is a, and maybe NIL helps with that. Maybe guys already getting something themselves helps with that. But I also think there is a camaraderie with this group. You just don't see teams that enjoy each other as much as these guys always, and that's not something to take lightly.
David Jackson, number one, Nightingale looks classy in the suit and tie there on the Spartan bench. Izzo should notice this and say no to the Nike lords and masters eschewing the polo shirt or sweatsuit and go back to the slick suit and tie look. And two, 6'8" Elmer Soderblom being elbowed to the head, and then Simon Edvinson receiving an obvious high stick to the face honestly makes one doubt the honesty of the officiating. The whole event was obviously a Columbus Blue Jackets love fest. The NHL wanted a Columbus win, and in the end, they got it.
You think about this, though. The idea that something would ever be a conspiracy to help the Columbus Blue Jackets win is pretty amazing. I don't think it is, because they're not a big market. They're not a market that usually gets those advantages. They're just, who wants the Columbus Blue Jackets to win? Like, the NHL doesn't care. I'm not saying it was well officiated. I'm just saying, usually the Columbus isn't the beneficiary of league conspiracies.
Kermit the Spartan, the way rebounding statistics are presented to viewers is misleading. Rebounding margins are as much a measure of defense and shooting percentage as they are rebounding. We need to know percentages of available rebounds gathered on offense and defense to get a good measure.
100%. And this is why, Ken Palm's, offensive rebounding percentage stuff is so important. And that's where Michigan State's been phenomenal. And that is, rebounding margin is not a great stat. It's and it shouldn't be utilized as the primary rebounding stat. Rebounding percentage is a much better way to look at it. And you have to go deeper on rebounding. You do, because and you can often tell when a team's good rebounding when they aren't, and then you got to look in their percentages to show it. But rebounding margin doesn't always do it. Now, if you're consistently out rebounding something, it's sort of like rebounding someone. It's sort of like plus minus, right? Plus minus in an individual game. Like if you look at the plus minus at halftime yesterday, Jase Richardson's -9. They didn't play much, but they were awful at the beginning, right? That it's not an entire, who somebody is in a game. It's who they play with and the moments they're in the game. But if you get a 5-game sample size, all of a sudden plus minus, starts to add up and make some sense.
Corey Ostrom next. The MSU half-court offense is at its best when Fears penetrates the lane and drives and dishes, kicks it out or finds a shot. The offense is least efficient when Fears stops his dribble in the lane. And Bake Take, MSU wins out and takes the regular season title and loses its first Big Ten tourney game, potentially setting up a deep NCAA tournament run with the extra rest and practice.
I do not expect Michigan State to win the Big Ten tournament. I think it's going to be hard because they're going to – this is something they've been striving for, this Big Ten championship. Like they are – I'm not saying they'll just exhale, but they will have accomplished in the league what they set out to accomplish in the league. There's nothing else in the league really do. Okay, there's this secondary tournament that's important, and some years it's important to you, especially when your regular season doesn't go as well. But when you've done, I mean, I can speak to Purdue in years that they've checked out in the second round when they've won the regular season. It's just hard to get up for it and say, well, wait, we got to do it again? We just proved it over 2 months. And I'm not saying that, you can get a matchup and you can and they're good enough that it could pan out. There was a year, obviously, in 2019 where Cassius Winston played his worst game in the quarterfinals against Ohio State. I think he wanted to go home. I do not think they wanted to be at that Big Ten tournament. And then Foster Loyer hit 4 threes and ruined it, and they won anyway. And then they played Wisconsin, which was a good matchup. And then the final, they were against Michigan. So it was all out, right? So there can be exceptions to this, but I would be very surprised if Michigan State wins the Big Ten tournament.
Thomas, MSU will win the Big Ten tournament, even if they're not trying that hard, a la 2018 and 19.
Hard to do in this one. I really think the West Coast schools will do pretty well in this Big Ten tournament when they, their travel is they get out there just like everybody else, settle in for a minute, and they've got some good teams. UCLA and Oregon especially, I think, will do well. I think teams that think they should have maybe won the Big Ten, even if that's not the case, or teams that really want a shot to prove something. Wisconsin, which got going later, maybe one of those teams. I think those are the teams that will do best.
Logan Tetford, best take. MSU will win out and win the Big Ten tournament and get the 1 seed in the Midwest bracket and will make the Final Four.
Well, that would be, people would be pretty happy. I want to bring up one more point on the Big Ten tournament is, the West Coast schools coming in may view the Big Ten tournament differently. And I don't know the culture of the Pac-12 quite as well. But if you think about Lindsey Schnell, who's out west, I think she lives in Portland, but who's covered that area, and she talked about what's more important is the double bye for Michigan than the Big Ten title. Obviously, she's wrong. But what I mean is she may be coming from a place where the culture sees the conference tournament in a certain way. So maybe that'll also factor in for the West Coast schools.
MZA, his team should have a legitimate Final Four, if not national title expectations.
Boy, I cut something here from MZA.
You did. You sure did.
Oh, my God. MZA, I'm sorry. I feel like there were a lot more from you. Where is it?
Graham's baked.
Yeah, geez. Oh, boy.
It's all right.
I apologize, MZA. We'll get you next time.
Dave Bear-Waldy next. How good is this team defensively, and can they sustain and build on it going into tournament time? And from Emma Anderson, go Spartans. Great win. Amazing defense. Meanwhile, similar gushing for Tennessee's number 1 ranked defense during their Alabama game. Head-to-head, right now, neutral court, whose D is better and why?
I don't know. I haven't seen enough of those teams, right? So, but how good is Michigan State defensively? I think, if you go to – hold on. Give me some hot for 1 second here.
I am a passenger.
Free Ubers.
I stay under glass.
So what's important is that you want to be – to win a national title, you want to be a top 10 defensive team nationally. There's some data on that basically says if you're not, a top 10 team offense and defense, it's very hard to do. And it's like in the NBA, you have to be at a certain point. And offensively, nationally, out of the 350 schools or whatever, there's 32. They're not that bad. But defensively, they're 5th now. They're all the way up to 5th. Like, that's impressive. They're obviously number 1 in the conference by a ways and 5th overall, and they're playing their best defense right now. So how good are they? I think they're really, really good defensively. They're good enough defensively to win a national title. The question, and we all know this, is offensively. And when you look at their offensive numbers on Ken Palm, for example, they're not bad. They're a good offensive rebounding team. They're okay, 2-point shooting team, good free throw shooting team. Lots of things they do, except one thing jumps at you. They are 29.7%, 347th in three-point shooting. And if you just go to conference numbers, they're still 15th, 32.4%. Like that, if they shoot like that, they will not win a national championship as good as they've been, because somebody will get them somewhere. So if they can improve that, though, all of a sudden their offense, that's the one thing they have going. A lot of teams that are 32nd in offense, which isn't bad, by the way, because in offense they're 4th in the Big Ten out of 18. But a lot of teams don't have an obvious way to get better. And with Michigan State, it's as simple as got to make outside shots, and they have some guys who've done that in the past. So there is a way for them to be a top 10 offensive team, but they're going to have to make shots.
C-Dubs 91 hot. If any other team in the country had Gonzaga's resume, they would miss the tournament. Baked. The Big Ten tourney should consist of teams 5 through 18, with the top 4 seeds getting an extra week off. Let the teams who aren't going to be in the tournament fight for an extra bid. And scheduling related take. Forget a trip to Comerica. Let's have a Couch in the Rube night at Oldsmobile Park. Get your sponsors to have tables, giveaways, and make it a Thirsty Thursday. Would be an incredible night.
Actually, much more realistic than probably going to Comerica Park for us to do. With something at Comerica. It's at Jackson Field here in downtown Lansing. The Great Oldsmobile Park is what it's called. That would be fun. That's not completely out of the realm for us to do something on a night this summer. But especially since I don't think we're going to have a live show before the tournament. We were hoping to do something with Midtown Brewing Company, which really wanted to do something. They've been great with us. And it's just a matter of dates. This Saturday was a possibility. The day before the Michigan State-Michigan game, end of the season, seemed like a good March Madness thing. I just don't know if I'll be back because I'm going to Indianapolis for the women's tournament after the Iowa men's game. And so I just didn't. It's a hard time of year to squeeze something in. So maybe we'll do something this summer.
Austin Wolf, how are these broadcaster schedules assigned? How does Michigan and Illinois get Kevin Harlan?
That was a CBS game, right? Or was it? Oh, I guess Michigan State was a CBS game. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. It's.
I love Harlan.
Sunday afternoon game though. You get the top crew. Usually you get the top crews. Illinois, Michigan. They probably see that as I don't know. It's a great question. I don't think Michigan State, Wisconsin seen in any lesser light, certainly. And I don't even know who the Michigan State crew was. I'm sorry. I don't know. I did not. Usually I watch the game back and didn't do it this time because I was getting horrible service at that restaurant we talked about earlier. I want to go back to something C-Dubs did as well. The idea that the Big Ten tournament should be teams 5 through 18, top 4 seeds not playing at all and getting the week off. I don't know how people would feel about that. The auto bid would go to somebody else, but 5 through 9 are going to be in anyway. I think teams 2 through 4 might think they can improve their resume with a couple wins. It'll be interesting to see what coaches wanted. I don't hate out-of-the-box thinking on the Big Ten tournament. I love that not everybody's in it. I love the bottom. I would say 5 through 15 if you were to do it or whatever. Take 12 teams, but not the top and the bottom. But again, what are you winning then? Because you don't win the whole Big Ten, and I think there's less incentive at the top. That's the only problem with it.
Ken Chu, Carson Cooper is the biggest unsung hero on the team, and Baked Peacock is actually pretty good at hockey.
Peacock?
I didn't mind. I thought Peacock did a good job when I watched, from afar on what night was that? Friday night. But I like Peacock in Premier League soccer too. It's just men's basketball and maybe football that they've got to up their game.
The 56 Shrad, whatever this is. Assuming Kohler and Cooper return next year, I don't see Booker seeing himself with roles he desires on this team. Not even a starter in year 3. And Baked, Cooper will have an offensive explosion next year and will find a role in the NBA. He does everything else at such a high level.
Yeah, the idea that Cooper will find a role in the NBA. I mean, I don't know. When he was young, I thought he would become that because he could run the floor. I thought he had okay hands. Obviously, he has decent size. What the NBA game is now, again, pick and roll defense will be there for him to a certain level. It's hard to make the NBA. I've changed my opinion on that. But again, bake take, and he'll get a look professionally. Booker, we'll see. I think it's 50-50 in my own head whether he's back, but that's not talking to him. He may know he's coming back. He may know he's not, and he's always somebody, even as he's struggled to find a consistent role, or a role I should say as expanded as he has been seems to be good about it, or at least he handles it well publicly, and that's not nothing.
Rich Kane, number one, I'm not worried about three-point shooting as much as I'm worried about the decline in free throw shooting. MSU is just 66% in the last 5 games. That trend must be reversed. And 2, Graham said last episode, the media do really important stories that take a lot of digging. They often don't get read. Agreed. I'd value a list of such stories from Graham each week, in YouTube comments maybe. I'd read them, and so would many others. Sponsor opportunity. 3, the worst thing about seeing the brief nudity warning was sitting through some awful B-movie, hoping to see a girl's ass or half a nipple, only to find out brief nudity meant dudes in a locker room shower scene.
It was the worst.
What? What movies were you watching where there was dudes in a locker? There was no dude nudity back in the day.
Yeah, but no, it would be
not
like,
as much now.
It's
all
all
cock now.
It'd be like an ass cheek or something. Is what he meant. That would be brief nudity.
Oh,
and that would be awful. That would be disappointing. But again, usually if it said
what time of night was it though?
Usually if it said brief nudity, I didn't watch. Like it had to be the full.
I was still good. I was good to go.
You're good to go.
Oh,
yeah.
Fully torqued.
Yeah,
yeah, dude.
It was not.
Come on, 15 years old. I mean, you fucking kidding me?
Nah, you take what you can get. Yeah. To the one
Victoria's Secret catalog. I mean, all the whole thing.
I don't hate your previous point either. The idea of putting a list of every time there's a good story, or putting a list of stories that I think are really good in the YouTube channel or something like that. I want to things that I think are worth reading, especially of local interest or whatever. Or statewide interest are have value. I'd love to see you guys help out, and that's a good idea. Maybe there's a way to do that.
Aiden's child next. I don't know if it is related to hospital mergers, but when we moved to Ann Arbor, a certain annual screening in the Michigan health system was 3 times what we paid in Georgia and 2 times what was charged by St. Joe's, the other big health network in Ann Arbor, regarding Mancarini story.
Yeah, why things cost what they do where, I don't know. There's some interesting stuff there. If you get a chance to read it, it's worth doing. And health costs are, Jason, you deal with health costs once in a while, right? So
yeah, it's not great.
Not great. Yeah.
Mike Scott, number 1, Michigan basketball equals Vikings football equals ridiculously lucky close wins and blowout losses equals fraud. 2, Oscar Thompson is going to be an absolute star.
I like what Asar has been, yeah, and I like Ron Holland. He's fun to watch. The whole Pistons team is fun to watch. Like, they show up every game. And like in the NBA, that's something. And now this is their initial rise, right? So it's fun. But yeah, they've been. It'll be interesting to see what Ivy comes back and what they do with him long term. And there's another piece they've got to add, obviously. But this has been pretty cool.
DMB, number 1, I can make the introduction to Smoker Couch, but need you to agree for a March live show. It is time. Deal? 2, if MSU completes this week with 2 wins, as they should, a one seed should be a lock. And 3, MSU retiring the floor slab is the reason their defense is now elite.
Although they did slap the floor at one point yesterday, and that's when Izzo did the fist pump thing, and it was a call that had been, I don't know, it was a moment. There was a floor slap yesterday, the first one I'd seen in a while, and it did not impact their defense. I can't remember if, I think they got a stop initially, but then Cooper couldn't hang on to the ball, and so Wisconsin got it back and might have scored. But they didn't score directly after the floor slap, which I think is important. The live show, like I said, there's maybe one, I don't think there's going to be a window in March. It's the NCAA tournament games when they play on Thursday. Like, I leave on Tuesday for that, right? So it's just hard. It's hard to do.
Jumping.
Oh, but I would take. By the way, I've talked to Jeff Smoker before about this. I would take any further introduction, but like it's on me to get that done, and that needs to be a priority. I'm very aware of it.
Jumping kitten kisses. The pickpocket from behind steals are not being called out. Seems like it's happening in games more for MSU. In high school, we yelled wolf. Wolf.
Is that what it's called? Like, yeah, it's usually like, look out, dude. Look out. I hated that feeling. Like, somebody's behind you about to take the ball from you, you're running up court. That's what happened to Trey Holloman yesterday. I was
yelling the whole time, too. Like, watch out. Like an ass. Simic, number 1, this MSU team can beat anyone not named Auburn. 2, MSU needs to jump Bama for the top 2 seed or claim a 1 seed, as they don't put Bama and Auburn in the same region, which puts MSU in the south or east with Auburn or Duke. And 3, I'd like to appreciate Jaden Akins. He struggled shooting this season, and every single game he's had great body language and always cheers for his teammates.
Yeah, I mean, that's body language matters. Caring matters. You know, even when things aren't going right, being happy for other people and happy for the collective, I think matters. Is Jeremy Fears the weakest link? There are games where he doesn't play well, but there are also times where I think he's really important to what they do. And so, you know, the old line that you're only as strong as your weakest link, I think sometimes overrated because you can bench your weakest link. But I think in this case, they need good Fears. I mean, they need good Fears. They need decent shooting Akins. These are things they need to make a run, and Fears is part of that.
Spartan Frank, it's become clear that Jeremy Fears is MSU's weakest link right now.
Sorry, I just responded to Spartan Franks. Even though
Aledo.
So, no, do Spartan Frank, sorry.
All right. It's become clear that Jeremy Fears is MSU's weakest link right now. Not just his lack of a scoring threat, but his lack of a length on defense and his constant possession killing when he gets into the lane with no plan other than force a lob to a big who's not moving. And baked Fears' subpar play can be properly blamed on Graham for not shutting up about him taking them to a new level in whatever ambiguous way he was describing. Heard it so many times this year, it's the new matchup proof. Still high on Fears for the future, and not saying he's terrible, but should be riding the bench. But the goal the rest of the way is to win.
Yeah, I just made the comment about Fears, and I made the comment that you're sort of making, that I keep saying he's big to their new level, and I do say it a lot because I think it's true. Like, I wouldn't say it if I didn't think it was, and I do think, like, if you go back to January when he had that game against Northwestern where it really looked like they may be able to ride him, and he had a game in late December like that. Obviously, what's happened with Jase Richardson has changed. Like, he's the guy to ride, but I still think Fears is really important.
Aledo, Jeremy Fears' jumper, when it's not needed in a critical moment, is on par with Tum Tum. And bonus, Graham, would Tom Izzo beat your ass, or you think you could take him?
What do you think here?
I think Izzo could take you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 70.
Yeah. But he's low to the ground. I think he could take you.
Yeah, he'd be fiery. I'd be nervous about it.
Punch you in the balls, and then you go down.
He'd be unpredictable, I think, in a fight. That would be my biggest concern about Izzo. Like, you don't want to fight somebody who's a little unpredictable.
The Keithski, it should be required that Jase Richardson touches the ball in one of the first two possessions. Get some momentum. Bait take until he gets confidence in his shot. Fears is just Tum Tum.
A lot of Fears Tum Tum comparison. I totally disagree, because here's the thing about Tum Tum. And I like Tum Tum, and I talked to Tum Tum a lot this year when did the piece behind the scenes with Bowling Green and Michigan State. But Tum Tum got to a point where it was sort of like the Madi Sissoko of point guards. I didn't know that he saw what the rest of the team was like. Nothing was improvised. The play worked, but it wasn't like anything. Like, Fears sees the game differently than Tum Tum did, when he was the point guard. That part of things I don't think is fair to Fears.
Means next. Refs are ass. Elon is ass. X is ass. Doge is ass. Izzo's God. Happy March.
Appreciate your means.
Hans Jurgen, number one. I've been working on launching a podcast. I sent a demo to Graham for his review. His comments were, and I quote, "The worst part of this was turning it on, and the best part was turning it off. My life is worse for listening to it. Please commit suicide. I have a coupon for a gun."
I did not write that.
2, I'll keep saying it, and anyone who disagrees can go to hell. The 2021 MSU men's team is the worst since 1988. And 3, Jase Richardson made the NBA scouts drool with that late game steal. We need one more year of him. We can win Player of the Year if he stays. 1 year is not enough.
Yeah, worse since '88 for the 2021 team. That's the COVID year team that got into the tournament in the play-in and lost. There were a couple NIT teams. 95, 96 was not great. I mean, that was a 500 team. There was a couple teams late in Judd's tenure. One that really lost some games down the stretch that should have made the tournament, but blew games. But I would say 96 was worse than 2021.
Jake Hawkins, number one, went to the game yesterday. Outstanding win. Nice to see they weren't hungover from last Wednesday. Akins looks like he finally found his shot, and never have I heard the Izzone give the ass refs so much shit. And 2, great rebound from Adam Nightingale in MSU hockey from last weekend to beat Notre Dame and win a second straight Big Ten title, hoping for a natty. Great finish for Robin Freilich in MSU women's basketball, but I wonder what will happen in recruiting after losing a 5-star
combo guard.
To South Carolina. And 3, rest in peace, Gene Hackman. Absolute legend, and I agree with you, Graham, about Runaway Jury being one of his best roles. Very good and underrated movie that keeps you guessing. The scene with Hackman and Hoffman was pure genius and perfectly cinematic, just as good as Pacino and De Niro in Heat.
Yeah, Runaway Jury. I know Jason hates my movie recommendations, but I would say it's one of my.
That's probably a classic with Hackman in it.
Yeah, Runaway Jury is well done. John Cusack and Rachel Vines. It's really good. Dustin Hoffman. It's
Right.
It's worth.
See, there's a recommendation when I hear the cast. I go, oh, absolutely.
It's worth doing.
Right.
It's worth the time.
All right, and finally, Upper Deck Jerk Guy number 1. It is amazing that people continue to underestimate Tom Izzo. 2, Adam Nightingale deserves a raise, and 3, refs need to have post-game press conferences where reporters can ask them about calls.
It's like 5 minutes with one of the refs. Wouldn't hate that. Wouldn't hate that at all. Never going to do it. Refs would hate it. They wouldn't agree to it. But that would be nice. Would be nice. Jason, you are the hero of today's show. The amount of reading you did today, I'm just glad you don't have like a young child that needs to be read to tonight, because I have a feeling you would skip that part of the bedtime routine. We appreciate all of you for producing our show, and you make this thing. We appreciate Pure Options. Go to pureoptions.com, and if you're still listening, you're well aware, and hopefully you've got several MGs in your system. Some great deals this month, and some incredible deals coming up through March Madness and St. Paddy's Day as well. We appreciate Muskox quality flannels. Be like Jeff Kohler. Be like us. Get yourself a Muskox today. Many of you have, and we very much appreciate you supporting our sponsors. Go muskox.com. The promo code is Fix It and Post for $15 off your flannel purchase. We appreciate Midtown Brewing Company. Great place for any occasion. We'll talk to you Wednesday. Good show, man.
Yeah, man.
Couch in the Room.